Shirley here with Sirius Talis Moon. This is Mars Hour, and we're talking about Jupiter night. Jupiter is still in the orb of squaring Mars, and Mars is 24 degrees Libra, which I think conjoins the sun of Benjamin Nethanyahu. And as I see, Benjamin Netanyahu and Rubio were visiting the West Wall. Women were not allowed to basically cover. Okay, women journalists were not allowed in. Um, Now, as a person that tends to political assassination prevention, this is a lovely, lovely example of how the extortion cults get people to do things that are against their best interests, to make them be more susceptible to political assassination. And let's open the chart of Benjamin Netanyahu, because I have seen the work done on him in terms of the events that are happening for a while. And mind you, it's not the political party that I vote for, and I think that should not matter. Netanyahu, Benjamin Netanyahu, name Benjamin Netanyahu, natal chart. Um, so, one of the things that were done, and that goes back to the assassination of Yitzhak Rabin. Basically, Netanyahu was demonstrating against Rabin. There were nice people in the crowd that put Rabin in Nazi uniform. Now, as a person who tends to political assassination prevention, I have so like so many people are put in the Nazi uniforms that um, eventually that became a joke. Um, and I even had instances where I said I could not be an officer. And I recently learned, thanks to Anneke Lucas, that in ritual satanic abuse, there were people who played Adolf Hitler in the ritual, and because it was done to children, of course, this is incredibly traumatic, and like they had to leave people or leave children or abandon and so on. And then even if the child does not remember that, that they are sort of like hacking the nervous system that make them respond. And Benjamin Netanyahu, so Sol 27 degrees Libra, and right now Mars is applying to the sun of Benjamin Netanyahu day chart. Mars is the more malefic. And yes, what another work that has been done was Benjamin Netanyahu, not unlike Trump, promised that in his rule there would be no intifada, which means kind of like the MK Ultra mass shootings that Charlie Kirk was assassinated by. And the equivalent in Israel, the assassination of Yitzhak Rabin was not a mass shooting, but eventually what they're showing is that, hey, there is also intifada during the regime of Benjamin Netanyahu, the entire war, and that is kind of nullifying his arguments across the years. And so Mars is conjoining Sol, went through the moon, and went through Ketu. So this entire Mars in Libra, squaring Uranus, squaring Jupiter. Jupiter in his 8th house is magnifying transformations um, in a public arena. So whether it is um, the demonstrations, the campaigns, the many things that was nearly impossible to have an opposition in Israel. And I wonder if right wingers dealt with that too at the time of Yitzhak Rabin, because it was literally impossible to have any sort of opposition that did not turn into V15, that called to say to go to say to Bibi go, and goodbye Bibi. And as a person that has been going to One Voice Israel and Palestine, from our point of view, One Voice Israel, and it was also One Voice Palestine, then it was turned to V15. My supposed peace party was turned to Goodbye Bibi party, where I said I don't cooperate with that. Um, and I walked out, um, and and again, it's got nothing to do with which party you vote for, um, but the mere understanding that okay, if a democratic regime is not democratic, and this is also kind of something to think about, because the only regime where a prime minister walks away to the next job safe and free is when he's elected. Of course, the discussion about changing the juristic system, and I'm not an expert on the structure of the juristic system. I'm more concerned again about the extortion courts running the juristic system and the government altogether than the internal structures. Um, yes, so here we have a midheaven, a 26-degree Virgo with Al Qaid, which means that this upcoming partial solar eclipse is very important for Benjamin Nethanyahu with Ketu. And you see such a stellium in Venus sign. Venus in Sagittarius, freedom for women is necessary for Jupiter on my lot of close to my lot of fortune, um, which is his ascendant. I have Uranus close to his ascendant. Um, yeah, Chiron on my Ketu. Interesting. And indeed, when I was young, when I was 12, there was assassination of Rabin, and what we saw was Benjamin Nethanyahu on the porch, where there were Rabin in Nazi uniform, and he was, of course, supporting the people, but the image that was framed was showing Nazi Rabin and showing Benjamin Netanyahu supporting that. Um, I was very young at that time. Neptune in the 11th house, Neptune Ketu, yes, having to surrender his image, and ruled by Venus. Um, yes, so Mars in Leo, Venus going over his Mars before ingressing into Virgo for the partial lunar eclipse. So anything that f's up the Venus in his chart um, would be basically supporting to undermine his sun and moon, and it's already a day chart, so he would have to turn to Jupiter. His Venus is ruled by Jupiter, Jupiter ruled by Saturn, Saturn in Mercury sign. So there is reception, yes, but the making of Benjamin Netanyahu do something that is not inclusive of women, further positioning him in having more susceptibility um, again to create antagonism, or to see in him a prime minister that will lead us into a fundamentalist regime, which is something that can absolutely be lethal for him. Okay, because such disinclusion can be interpreted as trafficking women, which of course is making it Venus's value, making it moral to assassinate a person that would do that. And this is how deep those social engineers go, because there is a tremendous amount of mind control that runs into any type of those leadership positions. There is the electorate, and it was done with Arabs in the buses. Every prime minister has its own, and it was done with that, with racism. Now they turn to the female electorate versus the religious electorate, and Benjamin Netanyahu probably is being misled to believe that he has to prefer the religious electorate over the female electorate, thereby posing him with Nazi ideology that secludes women, positioning him as an actual Hitler in the composition. And again, his son right now is in a highly sensitive position, in conjuncting Uranus and Saturn Neptune, squaring Pluto, which means that inevitably he's going to do polarizing. He's going to be seen as in a way that is polarizing. Mars in Leo, Pluto in Leo. Pluto actually is not in naturally polarizing. In fact, Benjamin Netanyahu managed to be a non-consensus consensus when it came to the electorate, and bridge a lot of the gaps within Israeli society for quite some years, being re-elected and re-elected. Again, all the rituals that are done for many candidates, and in fact, the fact that people are standing in the face of being targeted individuals, making them more aware of the rituals that are done on them, is making people preferring to vote the people that didn't do rituals on them. And so basically the people that weren't targeted by in a way that is malefic, and that is also something to keep in mind. There is an MK Ultra project in Israel. Uranus is in the 7th house of Benjamin Netanyahu, with Mercury in the 11th, so him being a subject to the civil war. But again, look at how the programming and the rituals are attempting at getting him to do things that would make it morally acceptable to assassinate him. Around elections, in October there are elections, I think, in both Netherlands and Israel. And again, I never voted for Bibi Netanyahu. It's just like it didn't represent me. But I also see as both tending to political assassination prevention, the technologies of targeted individuals, the mind control behind whether it was ritual satanic abuse, the peterings and extortion cults. I think it is important to, if I notice something in advance, to speak several times. I was coming to speak about Benjamin Netanyahu, not really knowing where to turn to in that regard. And I know his spouse is a Scorpio sun, which is in his 12th house. Um, and there was something to do with, yes, weird use of psychiatry. Um, okay, both, there's just something to do with the 12th house there. She was also smeared a lot. Um, and again, the pressures that are placed on public figures are also placed on targeted individuals. Um, and there are actually rituals done on targeted individuals that want the energy to go to destroy a certain candidate. Now again, those things are antagonizing um, to the goal, and those rituals are actually a part of the very orthodoxy that Benjamin Netanyahu acquiesces to. So this is something that tends to the political assassination here. Um, the over acquiescing to orthodoxy that eventually is perhaps involved with the assassination attempts themselves. It's a treason called. Um, so I know there was something involving his son as well. Um, again, those issues are beyond intricate, but it's also important to um, put a stop to those type of to those type of treason codes. Um, yes, so we're still within the aftermath of the Aries Libra eclipses that are still affecting us, and now this eclipse, Benjamin Netanyahu, is highly pinpointed. Ketu on his Saturn ruling over Jupiter, ruler of his ascendant. Um, I don't see the lethal degrees in the chart, and this is, I guess, why there's a lot of work done. I don't see the lethal degrees here. Perhaps they are in the lots and the asteroids. Um, but in general, it's an actually surprising chart. It's not 22 and it's not 11 thing. 15 the Greek is a can denote of accidents. Um, but this is in that case he has to be aware of what was done under Pfizer to drivers. Oh, God, car drivers. So they'll try to get to the yes, Pfizer, because this is Ketu Neptune on the degree of accidents. Venus, Jupiter, lungs. Okay. Jupiter, Saturn, Mercury. Saturn 15 degrees, Mercury, Venus is trying to get him into an accident similar to the ones that women there were attempts to get women into accidents and then to drug them and to traffic them. This is also a part of what is done here. Yes, um, this is also part of what is done here. I know he's under trial. Again, Mars indeed is ruler of his 12th house. So something to do with Qatar, I think. There's a lot of taxation things. Taxation, again, Saturn here is, although the ruler is ruled by Venus, Venus ruled by Jupiter, so taxation is difficult to get him. Qatar, because the involving weapon might get the Mars into that, and that's where they try to get with that, but they try to get him into an accident. There's a lot of work and rituals done on him. Yes, Pfizer was not operating well for him. Not at all. Um, and the Sun right now going through very challenging transits. Actually, Venus is trining his Sun. Is a sextiling his Sun, I'm sorry. And so is the galactic center. So is that eclipse lethal for him? I think working with Al Qaeda would be appropriate. Working with Spica would be appropriate. Person in such position was put through a lot of stuff and made. Yes, they're trying to get him to seclude women, applying to religious electorate. It's not going to end up well for him. Actually, Benjamin Netanyahu was, his main electorate were the people that didn't want to go full-blown Orthodox. And then one of his main opponents is actually Yair Lapid, who is centralist. And then there was the Zion in the Kalpi party, which was, which is, yes. Yes, that's Israel. But it's not only Israel. The world is crazy. U.S. is crazy. Netherlands is Netherlands. I'm just trying to allow mutual space to the events in Netherlands, and I said, okay, let's tend to what's happening here. Again, is it looking pretty for Benjamin Netanyahu? Not. Is it? It's very difficult to get at this man. But it's also, if we look at the people, okay, the Israeli civilians, a fourth house for the chart of Israel is in Capricorn, Saturn in Leo in the 11th. So we talk about people that are traditional, sometimes too traditional, and there are the polarities with women, and but even women, some of them are too traditional, and that places Netanyahu. And my fear is that the acquiescence to the ultra orthodoxy and not allowing women journalists And people say, oh, it's the wall, it's how it's divided, it's the fuck that. Nobody gets that. Okay, in the world, that looks bad. And rightfully so. Kotel, kotel, but when it comes to female journalists, um, there's just no way to keep that division in a modern world of where in the age of air, and people want transparency. The things that are happening in Mason rights are broadcasted on YouTube. The Vatican, okay, both being exposed but having to be more and more transparent. CIA having a civil war. Do you really think that any religion, or as orthodox as it can be, will not have its secrets exposed? No, that's not. That's not going to work, um, and that's not going to. Um, yeah, that's just people are. It's kind of like Islam trying to use inclusivity to make everybody Islamic. Same with Orthodoxy, um, and and my fear is that Benjamin Netanyahu is extorted because of certain felonies, and the promise that he will have a guise under the orthodoxy. It's a false promise. It's a treason cult. Not that Judaism is a treason cult, but these particular promises are ran by treason cults. It's not going to be protected, and that's at the very least. Um, yes, Israel is a high-tech nation, exposing actually holding accountable the technological advancements and their treason cult context um, is probably because he's going with Al Qaeda, mixing in with the Orthodoxy, not going to save the day for him. Not going to save the day for him. Um, and and any attempt to replace a representative regime, elected regime, sparks up political assassination in a way that, to me, as a person who tends to political assassination prevention, can no longer prevent. And that's important to understand. The only regime where a prime minister finish his okay job, moving on to the next position, retires safely and freely, at least relatively, is in a representative regime that is elected not on the basis of cult-like democracy, and when those conditions are not existing, um, this is where we have political assassination, um, and and that's the thing. The way to prevent political assassination is to tend to the things that undermine the one that is okay, and that is and I've been tending to all of these things. Um, what basically assisting targeted individuals would be more the way to go. Again, I don't know what is, how isolated he is, what is his position right now. There are so many rituals done. There's so many targeting, so many things on both him and his spouse um, in that position. And what we would be presented is his face with the actions that were taken underneath gloved hands and mind control. And as long as psychiatry is used as a threat rather than housing first, independent of ability to work and believe in the testimony of the patients, um, it is also holding hostages the political figures. And I'd like to actually, I really try to make it without Netherlands, but it's impossible. Um, okay, I will not address that. But this is where, okay, I will address that. Um, I was seeing a documentary about Geertwilders, and one of the things that he mentioned, because he's been living under 24/7 watch, there was a part in the movie where him and his spouse are suddenly taken to a place where he doesn't know where that place is, and they're being told that it's in their favor, while his spouse is having to, assist him to laugh the fears away. And as a person attendant to that case, um, not that particular scene, but and looked at the death threats. Yes, the laughing at the fears, and um, it's strange to say resilience. And Wilders talks very honestly and authentically, saying, yeah, there are people that say that when a person is locked up in for such duration, in such horrid conditions, they begin to believe in paranoia or conspiracy theories. And he says, even about himself, that maybe that's true, although I think that his belief, his testimony about what was happening in Islam was authentic. So I don't know what conspiracy theories was he referring to, because I see it differently. I see it as housing first believe the patient, um, but those secluded positions also we see are affecting um, the are basically causing perpetual mental crisis for Benjamin Netanyahu and his spouse. While if he, God forbids, address that with the bravery that Geert Wilders addresses that, he has to fear psychiatry. So who are the decision makers? One might ask. But it's an even bigger question, because when it comes to the sovereignty, which entails sexual sovereignty, and I addressed that quite sometimes, he has Lilith in Aries. Sexual sovereignty is needed for sovereignty. Lilith Rao, Mars Leo. And it's important to remember that when it comes to these extortion codes, um, it's not impossible that he himself went through those boundary violations. Um, and those that go through these rituals in the physicals are also perpetuating. Um, and in that case, they would try to use one of the people that he probably been both a victim and perpetrator, if that was the case, and they would try to use a survivor of where he was the perpetrator, and they would try to use hospitals, and they would try to use seclusion of women, and they would try to use uh, orthodoxy. So this is where yes, this eclipse is opposing Saturn Neptune. Showing us again how something that seems almost insignificant as a medical policy becomes life-threatening. And in solar eclipses, conjoining the moon and sun, very simply put, it means people are leaders, leaders are people. And one of the first time I got this eureka when I was basically tending to Geert Wilder's chart and his assassination threats case. And I see that with Benjamin Nethanyahu, they have Mars, Sun conjoining. And I see that with Benjamin Nethanyahu and his spouse. This is definitely, for me as a dual resident, for me as a person that at 12 years old learned about the assassination of Yitzhak Rabin, for me as my, the other things that I tended to in my life, for me as the person who walked out of One Voice when it became V15 and wanted to turn my peace party into Goodbye Bibi party. For me, that was ritually satanically abused in an apartment in Moore 19, Arad City, and escaped with those Zion rituals. And they were trying, as I was setting boundaries, they were trying to get me to say, go Bibi, go away Bibi. While that was something was a part of the psychic ritual. So that's my testimony. Me that knows that they hack into the police people and security people so that it's not like I can turn to Bibi or something. Um, and me that, the people are either being, you're a leftist or you're a Bibist. And I'm like, I'm a sushiist. Let me have my sushi. And whichever was the best representation for me being able to have my sushi and, traveling and resting and doing something creative that I enjoy in my life and living a good life, then that's where my vote goes. Um, um, so yeah, uh, and I think that a lot of the reasons that Benjamin Netanyahu, like there are a lot of the things that he did around the entire policy. It's not the first prime minister where I'm tending to that. Um, so you see, as an astrologer, I did a lot of charts, and then I was like, okay, charts of politicians. That is a candidate. That is a candidate. That is a prime minister. That is an ex-prime minister. That is. So it's my Pluto square finalizing, a Neptune square. Yes. So yes, it is time where I was very secluded, but also working on things that are really of almost mythical importance. It's an understatement. And I really hope that this would, I have to I post it and I let go, and I hope that that would create benefic change in humanity. Um, and perhaps it is a contribution that can change the way we look at politics, the way we look at our representatives. the way we look at extortion calls, the way we look at the lobbying, and the way we look at elections, and the way we look at the fact that behind every person is not just a team of advisors, but a team of people that put them through perpetual trauma and mind control, including those who tend to those cases. Okay? And yeah, it's definitely a fresh perspective for me. Um, and I hope that and we need to remember, people are leaders, leaders are people. What our leaders are going through, targeted individuals are going through, and what targeted individuals are going through, our leaders are going through. And I'm really, I'll even say something. Okay. I hope that's not taking it out of context. When Annika Lucas talked about the fact that certain people that she was trafficked, and certain people at the political milieu and royal milieu that abused her, also gave her things that she needed for survival. And she said she went through years of uh, removing the attachment, and I think that non-attachment is a good practice. Um, me as standing to situations where there were attempts to traffic me, understanding that the people that they were also trafficked, and um, and my understanding, because to me, there were various attempts along my childhood, a lot of rituals, um, but also the fact that every case I tended to, okay, basically, I'm grateful not just to the people that are dealing with those, the people that are living and dealing with those death threats, politicians, and so on, and aware of the other things, and also their spouses and those that have spouses, that this kind of like, in a world that is, what helped me is understanding, hey, these people went through probably what people went through in death and concentration camps, and lo and behold, they are building death and concentration camps. So we, the people, need to understand that those that we call elite, and they can be sometimes really annoying, um, but they are going through what they want to put the people through. So it's not that the solar eclipse will not matter for we the people, but people need to understand that the people are beginning to go through what the leaders are going through, and the leaders are going through what the people are going through, and that's a solar eclipse and a lunar eclipse. So perhaps it's good for us to think about that before Civil War clock strikes, and it's not even about unity. It's about sovereignty that is on all levels of being, including sexual sovereignty in spirit and in matter, which brings sovereignty and is brought by sovereignty. And within that, there is an ability to have a fruitful, an actual discussion, even if it is argumentation, and have tolerance that whichever level of decision making, including wealth consolidation with the wealth families, is necessary. Because what happens? A politician develops a trauma bond. He will perpetuate that in his relationships. Certain situations that are borderline trafficking, even parties, okay, if people have the stripper and the this and the that, that both parties are trafficked in that regard, and drugs take place and so on, and then you will perpetuate that with for that person. would perpetuate that with the people that tend to his security, would perpetuate that with the people, with the electorate, would perpetuate that as a treason trauma bond that believing that they have to be cruel and nice and cruel so that people will stay. And then when the people begin to not vote, when the people begin to walk away, there is an existential collapse, and this is something that targeted individuals experience as well. So it's about not and this is the thing. I watched a YouTube of a lady that deals with binge eating. I don't want to put the fire on her, but she says the thing about food addiction is that I need food. The things about relational patterns is that we all need relations. It's just that we need to remediate those relations rather than completely non-attachment, and have that sovereignty. I think without understanding listening to the testimonies of ritual abuse survivors, and untangling the cult like everything, and even the cult like a cult, because manifestation doesn't have to be malefic. So yes, this is what I have to say about Benjamin Netanyahu's chart. Sol hour. Neptune is 0° Aries world degree. And Saturn is about to go into the 28th degree of Pisces. Moon 26 degrees Gemini. Chiron, okay, is opposing, and Aries opposing the son of Benjamin Netanyahu. So again, just a lot of things. Venus in Leo, sextiling, remediating that opposition, trining Chiron, trining Aries, and the sun on the lot of fortune of the 1800 chart for the Netherlands. Israel and Netherlands are very tightly related. Benjamin Netanyahu, 7th October, called, yeah, back then Prime Minister Mark Rutte, Rutte. I don't know how to pronounce that, and I'm half Dutch. Anyway, jabs at me not being able to pronounce my surname can only be after a woman can live safe and free at every place in the Netherlands, and independent of ability to work. So no jabs on my pronunciation. Yes, so but then you can freely jab me about trying to take some space from the Netherlands. And then doing the Israeli chart, it is so effing connected. By the way, when they founded Israel, they were thinking of something like Switzerland and something like a Netherlands. And in Netherlands, they were thinking of something like a Switzerland, but they didn't have the mountains. And so the tall people are the indigenous. Never mind. What is mine? No matter what is matter. Never mind. So yeah, perhaps with some luck we will prevent another very weird political assassination attempt that won't look like that for this upcoming eclipse, or more than one. So this was Benjamin Netanyahu's chart, from a perspective of a person who tends to political assassination prevention and utilizes astrology as a frame of analysis, amongst many other things. So, yeah.